Most of the surveys that we send out are directed towards decision-maker level employees in enterprise-sized organizations. That's very large organizations. And we're often asked by our clients to interview 500 or even 1,000 of these respondent types. And that's understandable. Most of the research that most people, you and I, will see out in the real world will be directed towards that kind of size of sample, or maybe even larger than that, maybe even into the many thousands. But the thing to bear in mind, of course, is that most of the research that you and I do see out in everyday life, they are reporting the findings of consumers, and so they're representing a very large proportion of the population. When advising our clients on the sample size, that is the number of people that we're going to interview, we need to consider several things. First, we have to consider the actual size of the respondent universe. And that's a lot harder for business decision-maker level employees than it is for consumers. For consumers, most countries will have some kind of census that they do regularly every decade or so. And that census will contain a lot of detail about the makeup of how the country is formed in terms of the demographic information. And by demographic information, age, gender, location, and such like. But there's no real equivalent when it comes to employees of organizations. Then there's the number of respondents that we can realistically guarantee getting completes from. It's usually impractical to interview large numbers of decision-maker level employees. That's because these kinds of employees, managers or directors, are usually busy people and they've got a lot on their plate, and so won't have time to respond to surveys or answer telephone calls. Third, the level of statistical validity required, regardless of the size of the universe and the number of completions that we can guarantee getting, is the number that we'll get statistically valid and robust. That's important to consider when bearing in mind that if your research gets released publicly, it needs to stand up to scrutiny, especially when it gets released in the general press. And finally, to what extent further analysis will be required by breaking down the respondent sample into several distinct groups. If our client needs multiple sector breakdowns, for instance, we're going to need to make sure that each of those sector breakdowns has a large enough number of respondents in order that we can confidently analyze the results and provide them with some robust findings. Defining the exact number of respondents for your research isn't necessarily the work of a moment, but we put quite a lot of effort into making sure that we recommend something that's appropriate for you. So if you are conducting research and you're not sure about the number of respondents that you should be interviewing, do feel free to get in touch and we'll see how we can help.